Hey guys, today we're going to be doing what if France never sold America the Louisiana territory. Now this idea was proposed by my friend, but the more I looked into it, it actually became a pretty interesting scenario. So let's start. See, why France gave up Louisiana was, because they were in the middle of war. They were losing a lot of money really fast because, war is expensive, and as if that wasn't, bad enough, the Haitians also decided, hey, I'm out of here, which, ruined a lot of things. So in this timeline, I'm proposing that France just doesn't sell it on the cheap, and that makes the US not want to buy it. Of course, this would cause an early defeat at the hands of Napoleon, which he would most likely, just flee to America, and Britain would be okay with that, as long as he wasn't in Europe. Of course, in America, you take the Louisiana territory and create it into the Louisiana Empire. You would quickly want to expand, and where better to expand than the Mexico that was literally falling apart from political instability. And America would also join because free land, why not? The new Mexican government would just be completely obliterated and abolished and become part of a French puppet government, with France taking the northern states and the US taking the coastal regions. Napoleon would then spend his days teaching his youth on how to control the empire when he's gone, and then he would shortly just die because, that's kind of what, people back then do. They just kind of die of a cold. Anyways, when the new monarch's going to be crowned emperor, that's when Britain decides, you know what, I think now's a good time to take it. Especially since they expanded more people to the west, and because now they have an ally with Mexican rebels. Of course, with Mexican rebels so close to America, that wouldn't bode well for them, so they just invade Mexico and declare war on the British. Of course, American generals would help the French during this tough time, and America would lead a campaign into Canada, which would see little success since Canadian guerrilla fighters would be everywhere. After tough fighting, the Canadians would most likely flee to Britain, as the Quebecers would come in to fill the Canadian spot. Meanwhile, Mexico would just be partitioned between France and the United States. Of course, France would now see a new conquest against Russian Alaska, seeing that he would have to retake. Oh, he's dead. Yep, Napoleon II would die. And Napoleon III would see, whoa, I have a really big coastline. I should use that. And whenever he says, man, I should use it to expand to the Pacific, he finds a little island called Japan. And he would trade with them, just like as Americans did. Of course, Napoleon III would most likely see that keeping, a strong Asian power in the middle of the Pacific wouldn't bode well for Britain, and would most likely actually pull up arms against Britain during the Opium Wars. And then he would launch his own campaign against Russia and Alaska, seeking to, retake the glory that Napoleon once. Oh, he died as well. Okay. Well, let's see how Napoleon IV's doing. Well, he's going to have to deal with Mexican rebels, but it's very likely he'd take Indochina as a small victory to, keep himself in power. Then he'd die. Yep, just a lot of dying from Napoleons here. Of course, there would be a civil war still, just a lot later, since westward expansion wouldn't, cause it faster. It would, of course, be started by assassination on McKinley, which would lead to Teddy Roosevelt, an avid abolitionist, to take power. It would start with the southern states seceding to protect slavery, which wouldn't go well as the North was heavily industrialized now, while the South hadn't even been able to keep up, so they would obviously lose. But with conflict brewing between Japan and Russia, Napoleon V would most likely start stockpiling food, manpower, and weapons into Japan, and when the Japanese finally decide to attack, they'd also attack Alaska with them, and seize a lot of land. But of course the Americans would hold them back from seizing a lot more, causing a rift between the two old allies. This would lead to Napoleonic France joining the Central Powers, whereas America would join the Allies. But the German Empire wouldn't be the same as the German Empire in our timeline, as France would be much weakened, with national pride being down, seeing the great empire in the West, and there would be mass migration from the real France to the fake France, putting them low on manpower, making it so they couldn't be as strong as they were in our timeline, where they could claim anything with their great manpower, Germany would claim it instead, as they had way more national pride, manpower, and strength. Of course, the powder keg would be created, and the fire would be all over the room, and this would lead to the First World War, which is a lot weirder, as Germany is way more powerful, and with Napoleonic France taking care of the USA and America, it is very easy to say Napoleonic France would win this war, as they have way more manpower. Along with this, Central Powers' victory in Europe would be, obvious. Napoleon would finally be able to come back to France, of course, unwelcome by the Republicans there. The second he dies, though, France is just going to fall into a communist nationalist civil war. Meanwhile, America, suffering such a huge defeat, would lose a lot of nationalist pride, and a group would come to restore that. A man, actually. Huey Long would take over the U.S. Of course, he'd build his regime based upon nationalist pride and fixing the economy because of, Great Depression. Of course, America would support rebellions in the Louisiana Empire, which would cause it to just fall apart. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union would also support rebellions in China and California. This would lead to a civil war in the Americas again, which would end quickly with the Americans actually having an army. They'd easily mow through and set up a couple states as the fascist Quebec state, the communist California state, and the new American empire. This would be the world at this point in time, and yes, it is such an odd world now, and that's where I'm going to leave it off, on the brinks of World War II. Anyways, guys, this was a pretty fun scenario. If you could have thought of any way this scenario could have gone differently, please let me know in the comments. Also, comment any scenario ideas you might want me to do in the future. Remember to subscribe if you like the content. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.
Écoutez-les, nos voix qui montent des usines, nos voix de prolétaires qui disent y en a marre, marre de se lever tous les jours à 5 heures pour prendre un car, un train, parqué comme du bétail, marre de la machine qui nous saoule la tête, marre du chef-faillon, du chrono qui nous crève, marre de la vie d'esclave, de la vie de misère. Écoutez-les, nos voix, elles annoncent